Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop Fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I watched the English trailer, US cut, I'm sure, of The Secret in Their Eyes, 2009, and it sounded like, I think Ricardo Darín could be the Argentinian movie guy. Did you get that feeling?
I didn't think that as I was watching it, but I guess in retrospect, maybe.
I'm telling you, if there's anybody who could make me learn Spanish, it's that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I really, really wish we were related somehow. Cousins. I have grown so fond of Ricardo Darín.
Yeah, he really has jumped up really high in my favorite actors.
And he has aged so well. We started with he was a young lad, and now, rugged. That beard. My beard is suddenly aspirational to Ricardo Darín's beard.
Yep, the age makeup does him well.
He's about the only one it worked well for.
Yeah, well,
let's just talk about the trailer a little bit, because I posted the only trailer that I found, and I should note I didn't really try, and so you did the yeoman's work of digging up the Argentinian trailer, which is what's posted in the show notes, and I think that there are some notable differences.
Can I tell you the secret real quick? It's pretty easy.
I almost don't want you to ruin the magic.
You don't? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I mean, you could just...
We'll just leave it hanging there.
I'll tell you what. You say it, I'll go ahead and mute right now so I won't listen to you. I'll turn my speakers down.
I want everybody to ponder this. And nobody will know.
I want you to be the guy with all that power.
I will reveal it on the Saturday matinee.
Oh, excellent. Hey, that's good. That's tricky. What do you think of the trailer for this film?
The nice thing about this story is it's got two very strong through lines. And what they were able to do with the trailer is really kind of focus their attention on one of those through lines and really kind of leave you feeling like you have a sense of what the story is. Only to get, when you sit down and watch the movie, it's like, oh, there's this whole other story happening also that's kind of woven through. I thought that was really a nice way to do that. In the Spanish trailer, you do get a little bit more of the hints of the love story than you do in the English trailer, but it still is really focusing on the detective story. So I like that. I felt like this was actually a pretty good trailer as far as giving you a sense of an exciting story while allowing it to still surprise you when you sat down in the theater. And
the crime story is so convoluted, right, that even in the U.S. cut, like they couldn't give anything away. Or in the trailer, they could show you the whole thing, but the way it was cut together and playing with time, everything's out of order. There's no way you're going to watch that trailer and come out of it and say, "Wow, I sure wish they hadn't shown me that stadium that gave the whole thing away." Like you're just not going to get it. I was interested in it. Just struck me that they actually showed the naked body on the floor in the Argentinian film or in the Argentinian trailer, and that just going to show that they apparently think people in Argentina can handle it.
And Americans are prudes.
Americans are the prudes, which it was jarring. But I found the trailer was much more patient. It was much easier to just sort of sink my teeth into. You're right. It was a little bit more balanced. I think for the U.S. audience, it was cut much more energetically, frenetically. It was much more of an action thriller trailer, and probably better that the action sells the movie and the romance weirdly becomes the reward, which we'll talk about. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I would say I would give this trailer an A.
El 21 de junio de 1974 fue el último día que Ricardo Morales desayunó con Liliana Coloto. Usted sabe tan bien como yo que violó y mató a esa chica. No se meta. Ninguno de los dos puede hacer nada.
Este asunto se acabó.
¡Van a saber lo que es la justicia, hijo de puta! No sabés con quién te está metiendo, ¿eh? No tenés una mínima idea.
This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that over there is Andy Nelson.
Hey, hey, hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, we're on the downhill slide of our Ricardo Darín series, this week with the 2009 Juan José Campanella film, The Secret in Their Eyes. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel.
And if you enjoy this show and are interested in supporting our ongoing work investigating great films like this one, please consider a regular donation through our Patreon page. You'll get to join our back channel conversations on Slack, listen to the members-only weekend show, and get better chances of being part of our Listener's Choice episodes. We have one coming up soon. Just head on over to patreon.com/thenextreel.
Los ojos hablan.
Andy, I'm not prepared. I meant to read some of your Letterboxd review of the remake Secret in Their Eyes, and I'm not prepared.
It wasn't much of a review.
I'm going to share that. I'm going to share that later when we talk about remakes later. But I just want to open the show with this. Did you like this movie better than the remake?
Let's see. I gave the remake a half star. It might have been a little
a grudging half star.
Mean, just because I watched them back to back. But I definitely liked this one better than I liked that one. It had plenty of room in which to be an improvement.
Oh, that was, and we talked about that. That was a trailer pick. Like we had talked about that film. The trailer actually, I think, sold the movie pretty well. It looked grim and gritty and tough to watch. And I still have not seen it, but
likewise, they sell the detective story, and you kind of get a sense of that. I mean, there are problems. We'll talk more about that as we kind of get to the remake toward the end. But
absolutely,
there's definitely issues.
This film, I think, does an amazing job balancing the violent crime and the cold case narrative that we have here, as it plays with time, sort of parallel timelines, and the unrequited love story. And I found myself really moved at just how well the movie handles that. The sort of middle-aged guy trying to come to terms with the fact that he missed a grand opportunity for love in his life, and just how long he'd been struggling with that. That the movie was able to so deftly make me feel as a result of that, in spite of and in addition to this amazing crime story that's going on, is a testament to, I think, just a terrific film in the hands of a exceptional filmmaker.
I completely agree. The film is put together incredibly well. I think Campanella has really proven himself now with two genres and two very strong films, at least for my money. And the story, the way that this story it's non-linear, and we're jumping through time from the 25 years ago when this case happens, and they're trying to uncover who done it, to several years later after the guilty party is set free, to the kind of, the present day, or at least 25 years later, so 1999, I guess, as we're dealing with these guys and trying to deal with resolving the crime and their unrequited love. The way everything weaves together is just so clean and so nice. And nothing ever felt out of place to me. And sometimes I would say, it felt like a really interesting detective story. Why did they need to throw that love story in? Or, man, it was a really touching love story. That detective story kept getting in the way of it. I never felt that. Like, they both came together in such clean ways that it always worked. And I was so impressed with the storytelling prowess that Campanella kind of approached this with in order to find that balance. It was really a marvel. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is, I mean, you got it just right. Like, that's usually the feeling you're left with when you see movies like this that sort of are ham-handed around the relationship stuff, that you feel, sort of, you don't feel good about walking out of a movie that doesn't handle that well at the expense of a crime. And in this case, I just felt complete at the end of this film. I really did. I thought it was wonderful. Not only that, it's beautiful. It is really beautifully shot. Everything, I think it has a terrific visual rhythm that is driven by his, instinct around how to shoot the crime versus the more sort of human elements of the film. Lots of incredibly beautiful Dutch angles, and I found myself really invited into the frame.
There are a lot of times where you feel like you're in the room with them, and I think it's because the way the camera's positioned, it's oftentimes it's lower. There's kind of some interesting elements, some foreground elements between you and the actors that kind of makes you feel like you're in the space with them and you can't quite see them because there's this pile of papers or this lamp in between you, and it just feels like you just feel like you're there, and it really does integrate you into the story quite nicely. I really respected all of those decisions, and I also respected the way that Campanella, when he would kind of put some of these shots together, would find ways to do it with tools that were more interesting, that allowed him to kind of do something a little a little more unique that kind of also tied into the emotions within the scene. For example, the scene in the elevator where you have Ricardo stepping into the elevator with Soledad. And this is after they realize that this man, this rapist murderer, Gomez, that they had put away, has been released by the government. Who Argentina was going through this period where there was corruption in their government, and they basically said, "Hey, this guy is perfect. He's a great person that we can bring into our fold to kind of take care of problems that we might have." And they realize that, and they confront the police chief who had released him and everything and had him in his employ. And so, and this is after they leave. They get into this elevator. They're very frustrated. And then Gomez steps into the elevator with them. And it's this fantastic, just single take of you're looking at the three of them from the front, and you see the two of them behind him and Gomez kind of facing the elevator doors. And then he kind of pulls his gun out and he kind of checks the clip and he puts it back in, and he kind of, and you can see their faces and their reaction, and he puts the gun away. He gets out, and the back of the elevator is reflective. And as he gets out, he turns and looks at them, and he just does this little, eyebrow look at Esposito, Darin's character. It was all in one shot, one take, and it was beautiful and it was powerful. And that to me was like, this is real filmmaking. This is a director who knows how to tie everything together and is not afraid to do something like that because it can be risky, but he pulls it off.
I think that's a great example of the sort of intimacy that he has with the with the camera, with placement, with framing, with composition, and with editing. I mean, he edited the film too, I think on the other end of that spectrum, this film also boasts some of the most amazing visual effects, like invisible visual effects treatment that I absolutely did not expect to see in a movie like this.
Oh yeah, and invisible effects, and that's we talked about this way back with Apollo 13, where a filmmaker uses these effects tools not to make aliens or things. I mean, we've seen plenty of that with our recent Star Trek series, but to just kind of do little things that you don't even notice, but it just helps create that world.
Yeah, oh, it really does. You had dug up some of the effects reels of the team, the guy who headed it. We'll talk about in a bit. But watching these things, like the level of sensitivity and detail that they pull out, things like, this is a column that only has 2 sconces on it. I think we're going to go ahead and add a third one just for balance. And it's amazing how much of a difference that makes. The cleanup that they had to do to this building where they shot that the current state of it is it's torn up, the paint is peeling. They didn't do a lot of just sort of restructuring of the building, but man, they gave it a beautiful cleanup. It looks like a brand new sort of paint job, a brand new building in circa the early timeline for the film, 74. It was just everything looks completely of a piece. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and you read stories about like the work that they did. I think that they said the shot that was, or the 3 shots that were the most complex for the entire film were the shots when Gomez is theoretically killed by Morales, when Morales is telling Esposito what happened, and he says, I caught him, I hit him over the head, threw him in my trunk, and drove him out and shot him, basically kind of explaining this thing. And those just is 3 very short shots when he kind of walks up to his trunk, opens it, and shoots him. But the train that went by was a modern train, and they had to make it an old train. There was a factory behind, and they had to remove it. When they did that, they had to remove the bushes, and they had to add new bushes in. It's like everything. Yeah. They said it was so complex. Which is crazy because you watch them go by and it's like they go by awfully quickly. They don't seem that complex, but that's the magic of effects, I guess.
That was an interesting thing. And I'm curious your thoughts on that because what I'm accustomed to is, well, we're here, we're going to just put a train in. right? We'll just put a train in. And instead, what it looked like is they waited for a train, or, had a real train go by and redressed it.
Right.
Am I explaining that right? I mean, it looked like they intentionally, there was a real train that went by, but a modern train, as you said, and they redressed it. And I'm curious what you might sort of speculate their strategy was there, rather than just creating a train. Why did they wait for the train to go by?
Well, my hunch is when a train passes, there are a lot of other elements that end up moving because of it. A lot of, bushes move, the way the lighting hits, you get that fantastic kind of the stutter lighting out of the windows and everything. And so that was my hunch, is that even though it was, they had to change the look of the train, they were able to keep all of those things that changed in the environment because a large, structure kind of zipped through the environment right there. That was my best guess.
You know what? I'm going to take that.
Yes.
That was beautiful. That was well done. There were some smaller performances in here. I shouldn't say smaller performances, but Guillermo Francella? I don't know.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah. What would Campanella do? Is the question. Would it be Guillermo? Guillermo Francella. Yeah.
I
don't. That sounds so awkward. I don't know.
Francella. Guillermo Francella is a comedian. He's an Argentinian comedian, and he is a highlight in this film for me. I was delighted every time he was on screen, and partly because he is funny. The opening sequence where we meet him, he's actually he's typing out a statement on behalf of the judge that runs their office. It's a statement where the judge is declaring that he is not fit to practice law, something like that, and he tries to sneak it in to get the judge to sign it on his own behalf, which I find a riot. I thought that was a great gag. He's full of these gags, and then you realize that his life is sort of falling apart, and he is a drunk, but even as a drunk, he uncovers the central strategy to finding Gomez with his Greek chorus of drunks in a bar. And I think it was a wonderful scene. And I couldn't help but compare him to somebody like Steve Carell or Jim Carrey, these guys who started out as funny guys and then managed to deliver performances that were just blockbuster as their careers matured. And I feel like I sort of want to see more of Guillermo.
Yeah, he was a real treat in this film. And I think it's because the characters are all they feel so fully realized. Yeah. And he's got this great habit of answering the phone and giving kind of a false company name. It's like, this was something I remember we would do in elementary school, where you're like, Dick's Mortuary, you stab him, we slap him, or whatever it is,
Right.
It's like you'd answer the phone that way. And the sperm bank one.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is a legal office. Like, these are court investigators.
Exactly.
It's perfect. Just perfect.
Yeah, fantastic.
You made a note about attention to detail, and I didn't notice this, but I really, I think it's a nice touch.
Again, just going to the focus that the storytellers really have here. Right toward the beginning of the film, we see Esposito as he's starting to kind of write his notes for this book that he's working on, detailing, like, this is how he's dealing with his past, as he's decided to write it out as a novel. And at the beginning, you see him writing, and on screen, you see it playing out, and it's kind of this melodramatic love story between Morales and his wife, and it's very melodramatic. And then it instantly cuts to him, and he just rips the paper up, crumples it, and throws it away. And then you see him starting over again, and now he's writing not so much about their romance anymore. Now he's writing about her rape and subsequent murder, and he kind of writes it out. And then he cuts back to him, and he stops. And instead of ripping the page out and crumpling it, it was just so interesting how he gently pulled the paper out of his notebook and then just kind of set it aside. And it was as if just the way that he's treating the memory of it was reflected in the way that he handled the paper. And I just thought that was such an incredible character detail.
Yeah, it's a really lovely touch, and just watching the way he struggles with pen to paper and the way they shot the pen interacting with the paper, that fountain pen, it was luscious.
Not to mention, one of my favorite things of the film is just the brilliance of that thematic, the one word that he kind of woke up in the middle of the night and writes down on the paper, temo, I'm afraid, or I fear. And then how that is so brilliantly kind of sums up so much of his life because of the detective, just all the crime stuff in his life, and also his fear of telling her the truth. And then at the end, and I love how it ties in with the broken typewriter with the A, how the A doesn't work. And here he's replacing the A on all of his pages that he's typed up. And you see him looking at this note, and he puts the A on the page between the TE and the MO, making the one word temo to the two words te amo, I love you. And I'm like, that is a brilliant way to kind of thematically move from the fear in his life and the struggling with his memories and all of this to the final acknowledgement of his feelings for Irene. And I was just like, that was so beautiful.
And I think he writes it as a capital A, right? In Te Amo? Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. I mean, that's really the message, which I don't know. I feel like I'm going to be overgeneralizing here. But it feels so much like this film, as grim and dark and gruesome as it is ultimately really optimistic, right? It resolves very happily for me, right? And I don't think we see that very often in movies like this. We did find out what was in the box in 7, and it didn't end well. And in this movie, that his life was empty not because of the crime. Like, the crime was the vehicle that got him to realize that he was missing an important love in his life, and that's the ultimate story that I think that all of these little notes and motifs and the way they play this game with the door, the open the door, shut the door, things are important, things are not important. The way they talk with each other is really it's the dotted line that leads us to his ultimate fulfillment and growth as a character, and that was I think one of empowerment and strength, in spite of the fact that they didn't let the crime destroy him, which I think so many of these movies do.
Right. He was able to kind of move through and break out of it. And I think thematically, it also, that was, I think, what worked so well in context of this story is the theme and how you have this sense of the prisons that we put ourselves in. And here he is, he's created this prison for himself where he can't tell her the truth. And so he's lived 25 years in this prison. He's married unhappily, and he can't admit it. And it's not really until he can resolve this crime and he finds that Morales has also kind of put himself into this prison because he's locked Gomez up in his barn, basically, and he uncovers that reality, and through finding his resolution for that, he's able to kind of break himself out of his own prison.
It felt like sort of an interesting parallel, and I'm only bringing this up for no other reason than we just had this movie back to back on the show through the film board. The final speech of Hercule Poirot in Murder on the Orient Express, it had a very similar sentiment on the nature of judgment. Of crime and judgment to my eye. We're starting to really, much more publicly and simply question the role of human judgment of others' acts, right? Who are we to say? And this movie presents that very argument, right? That there was a crime, and then there was a crime on top of that crime as the grieving husband finds and tracks and captures the freed but guilty criminal and keeps him in a jail in his barn for 25 years and feeds him and won't speak to him and just keeps him as a prisoner. All hinging on that one line in the film. You said life. You said he would get life. And now, the logical end is I'm giving him life because the government wouldn't. Because the people wouldn't. I'm going to do that. And so, our main character is forced to sit and stew on that and to face it and say, is he so wrong for doing that? Who am I to say that that this is the wrong thing to do. We know he did it. He confessed to it in, I should say, an incredible good cop, bad cop scene. That huge question is what it sort of undergirds the criminal portion of the film, the story of the crime itself. And I think it really puts Esposito in a very difficult situation that he handles very, very well.
Yeah, it's really strong. It's again, I don't want to get too deep in it, but it's not handled nearly as well in the remake. Oh, stop it, Andy. Stop it.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
So the film was based on a book that I obviously have not read.
Yeah.
Have you read the book because your Spanish is so good?
I have not. Which its English title is "The Question in Their Eyes," right?
Yes, and I wonder, does that change the way you would take the film? Secret versus question?
No, I don't think so. But without really knowing what the book's about, it's hard to say. You know, I'm not sure exactly how different the book is from this.
Well, I've heard that the 2015 remake is actually much closer to the book, so I know you'll be thrilled to hear that.
Why?
Bringing it around again.
Listen to you.
I'm fascinated by it. Now Campanella actually is on has a writing credit on this with Eduardo Sacheri, who wrote the novel, and so that you would think that this is fairly close to the original.
You would think so. I'm looking at the translated version of the Amazon description of the Spanish novel.
Oh, I hear they're very good at machine translation. I think that this is going to be delightful and accurate.
Right, exactly. It looks like, yeah. I mean, just from what I can pull from it, it looks like pretty much the same story. So I'm not sure the question versus the secret. I feel like I like the secret in their eyes because I feel like these people all have these secrets, and I think there's such an interesting motif of what people are saying, with just their eyes and what they're actually saying, and that is, I mean, that's good storytelling anyway, when you have that happening in a film, when you see people and they're saying one thing but their eyes are kind of saying the other. Mm-hmm. That's just great subtext. We all like that. But I think they do it exceptionally well here. And I don't know, the question in their eyes, it's
much less diabolical.
Well, yeah, it's just like, so what is the question? I don't know. It's kind of a stranger title for me. Yeah. I don't like it as much.
I think the secret implies malice, and you need that for a thriller. I think it's sort of an obvious choice. I just wonder, it makes me want to read the book.
Yeah.
I didn't see an English translation of it, but it made me want to read the book.
Yeah, I'd be curious about that.
Yeah. So anyway, what do we know about how Campanella got involved in this project?
Well, other than the fact that I believe he and the writer are I don't know if they're friends, but they have worked on other projects together, at least after this. So they might have just kind of come together. But it sounds like he was inspired because of this whole idea he had of, you have these huge spaces where you have people moving through these spaces, doing things, whatever, going places. And then you cut to an extreme close-up of eyes in that space. And he said it's just, there's this really interesting contrast of those two things. And he, in the commentary, he was specifically talking about this in the scene where Esposito comes to the train station, and you just have this wide shot of the train station as he comes and he finds Morales sitting there on his perpetual search to find the bad guy. And you don't hear any of their conversation. You just see Morales like stand up and, give him a hug. Like, that, he has found his guy, and it's a great shot. And that kind of, that is kind of the scene that came from it. We don't have any extreme close-ups of eyes in that shot or in that scene, but that's kind of where this whole idea came from, because of what you can see and what you can say. So I think that's pretty interesting. And then also, Argentina has had a pretty, rough period with some of its governmental ruling. And that certainly tied into this particular story. And it works really well because the way that they tie in that governmental suppression and kind of the political situation that Argentina had been going through in its last dictatorship, it really is this turmoil when there's this state-sponsored terrorism, and that really leads to the freeing of Gomez and that whole last half of the story, which I think works really well in context. And I think that's one of the problems, honestly, with the American remake is our history didn't have something quite like that in order for them to make that connection. So they really had to artificially find a way to tie it in, and it ended up being with September 11th and everything going on afterward. And it just doesn't work.
But when you don't have a repressive secret state police, when you don't I don't know. I feel like that's a tough thing to shoehorn into the story. The context is everything here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It just didn't work.
Let's do first shot, last shot. It's been a little while since we've had a really good one.
Well, we did Nine Queens. That was, I thought, a nice one because it's really kind of the start and end of
that's a good point.
The setup, yeah.
That's a good point. And this I think follows suit.
This does. It really does. It starts what's great about the first shot, last shot in this particular film is it's not connected to what we have with the detective story. It really is focused on this love story. And the first shot is really about memories, and specifically Esposito's memories of his departure at the train station, the last time that he had seen Irene when he had to kind of flee because he was afraid that he was going to be assassinated by Gomez. And you have it's memory shots. It's kind of very not soft focus, but it's everything's filtered. You have a much slower shutter speed, so everything's kind of stuttering of the station platform sign before we cut to Irene's eyes, and we kind of see this memory play out.
And the last shot is the final moment of this unrequited love. It is acknowledged between these two fantastic characters as now adults. And I guess they were adults before, but now they're really adults. And then
are you trying to say they're not old? They're not seniors.
No, they're not seniors. Right. They're fine, and they're only just starting to get up multiple times in the night. Like you get it. And then they finally actually do shut the door. And it's beautiful. It's a lovely pairing between these two things, and it's such a weird thing to say about a movie that deals with such a gruesome rape and murder.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's very nice in just it's these memories that are kind of haunting Esposito, and it really is finally about being able to close that door on kind of this chapter of his life and move forward, no longer being haunted. I thought it was a really effective way to bookend the film.
I did too, and that also leads us into another fantastic scene, Andy. It's the deep scene dive. This is an amazing scene, and it took me a while. I know I was bugging you because it took me a while to actually watch this movie. You watched it like 2 weeks ago, and you were like, okay, all I'm going to say is the stadium scene. We got to do the stadium scene. I mean, we could do whatever other scene you want, but I'm just saying the stadium. And so finally I watched it. You start using more and more question marks lined up together. Have you watched the movie yet? 3 question marks. How about now? 5 question marks. I watched the movie, and you are so right, man. This football stadium is amazing.
And what's great about it is it happens between in this period of the film where things are kind of coming to a lull as they're getting frustrated with the investigation and everything, and they're not exactly sure. They finally get it reopened. And then they pin down this whole thing about, it's his passion, and that's the secret that we've always missed. And that leads into this great thing. And then it kind of, it goes into this lull as we prepare for the interrogation. And as you said, that fantastic good cop, bad cop scene. And here, like right at the middle of the film, you have this incredible scene that kind of, for me, came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it at all. And at first, as you kind of start on this stage stadium shot, and the helicopter flies into the stadium, and you're watching the soccer players, and you see the goal not quite get in there, and then all of a sudden you're going right over the crowd's heads, and then you're going right into the crowd, right up to Esposito in the crowd as he's looking around to find Gomez, because this is his passion. He is passionate about this soccer team.
It is right out of nowhere. This is a scene. I was laying down on the couch when I watched this thing, and I've got the TV. It's kind of up on the wall, and I'm watching this thing, and I've been enjoying the movie. I'm kind of writing notes upside down, and then we're in the helicopter, and we're kind of flying in, and you know that feeling of just sort of exhilaration that comes when you think, wow, that helicopter's not stopping. The shot is not stopping. And I found myself, I would swing my legs over the couch, and I would kind of sit up, and I was just like, just the camera work on this thing, I was on the edge of my seat by the time this was over, because it doesn't end there. We hit Esposito, and we're in the stands with him, and we rotate around him in this close up. We see that he's there with Pablo, and they are searching the crowd, and the stadium has 50,000 people in it, and we're going up and down, and we've got some jiggly monkey camera things going on because there's people are elbowing. They think they see Gomez. It's not Gomez. They eventually find Gomez, and then we get into a foot chase. This foot chase that leads down into the bowels of the stadium. We're hiding out in the bathroom. We come out of the bathroom. We're running. We're jumping over concrete embankments, and eventually Gomez falls. He's trying to climb off of a second-story kind of parking garage thing in the stadium. He falls, he hurts his leg, and runs back out into the bright lights on the field itself, and that's where he falls, and we end the sequence on an extreme close-up of his face in the grass sideways. It is really terrific chase. It is a terrific and exhilarating chase, and it turns out, as much as I deeply wanted to hear that this was just a guy on a harness being hung off of a helicopter, it turns out it took some more work to get the shot.
Yeah, just a little bit of work to get the shot. It's crazy. You read kind of the behind the scenes as to what it took to actually make this happen, and you're like, oh wow, that's pretty nutty. And then you watch the behind the scenes, like the VFX reel that this visual effects company put together. It's a fantastic 6 minutes of watching as it shows you like the different layers of each shot and what they had to add and what was real and what wasn't. And you're seeing all of these different things come together. And then it reveals, and then this is where this shot starts, and then this is where this shot ends. And this is how we had to match up the two pieces of the footage to fit so that it all worked. And then this is where the third shot started. And then you're like, this was an 8-shot scene, beautifully stitched together to make this thing just like masterful. I mean, it's not Birdman, but I mean, I can see like this is the sort of thing that Iñárritu would see and go, hey, I want to do that for a full film.
Yeah. This was what it looks like. It was 3 months of pre-production on this, 3 days of shooting in the actual stadium. This was the Huracan Football Club stadium. 9 months in post-production. They took 200 extras in the stands and created 50,000 fans out of them in visual effects. As you said, 8 shots stitched together over 6 minutes. It is just great. Our principal cast in this sequence is obviously Ricardo Darín and Guillermo Francella as Benjamin Esposito and Pablo Sandoval, and Javier Godino as Isidoro Gomez, the poor lad who happened to get chased through the stadium. Camera work by Felix Monti. You want to talk about the camera? It's fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of great camera work through this. I mean, really interesting stuff, obviously, when you're having to put things together like this. What's great about watching the behind the scenes is seeing how they work these things out. Like when the bit when Gomez decides to escape, he's got to climb over this wall and drop down off the landing to this passage below. And you see that, oh, there's this actual whole landing there that they had constructed that they digitally remove. And the cameraman, he is out on it and he sees this happen or he sees Gomez coming toward him and he backs up, and Gomez has this harness on. And so when he climbs over, he's kind of hung by this harness, and the cameraman has a harness. And then you see Gomez slip and fall, and the cameraman like drops right behind him. And I'm like, this is brilliant. It's so exciting to see them really working on coming together with this stuff. What's exciting about also just the way that they work this is that I felt it really consistently still kept Campanella's way that he was framing throughout the film. And I think that's hard to do on a shot like this. But right when the camera first lands on Esposito in the stands, you get that shot where Esposito is hard frame left, and the rest of the frame, as he's kind of looking around, is full of people and just space. And he throughout the film, he really squeezes his characters into corners like that. And he does it here. It just makes you uncomfortable, and it keeps the tension up. And he's using this beautiful 2.35 to 1 widescreen frame. It's a very letterboxed image. And so he has a lot of room to do that. And it is so nice.
It's amazing how well that scales too. You watch this, and I say that on in the context of modern sort of movie going, where you may be in the big screen, but you are more likely to see this on a very small screen, sometimes a very, very small screen. And the way he uses that wide frame actually scales remarkably well, even down to a phone. It still feels really spacious as you're watching this, because he's jammed so far over to the left. So many of these shots make Madness feel like Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, right. It really just fits so nicely. Yeah. And you get that also just how beautiful it is when it's full of a face. Yeah. Like at the end when you have Gomez lying in the grass and his face is kind of horizontal lying in the grass, and it just works so nicely in the frame as the baton comes down and pushes it down, as the dog runs over, as Esposito runs over. It's just really nice. And even at that point, they still keep, this is something I've been noticing with Campanella as we've watched, these past two films of his. He really likes a narrow depth of field. And I think he uses it really well to his advantage. And I like that he's still using it throughout this. As we get to that last moment when Gomez is lying in the grass, you see a blurry person in a suit running toward him. We don't necessarily need to have Esposito in focus to know that that's Esposito. Right now, our focus is on Gomez, and I think that Campanella uses that really effectively.
We already obviously mentioned the visual effects. We're talking about the three most complicated shots, which by comparison, it's sort of stunning when we're talking about this shot in our deep scene dive, that there are more complex shots, visual effects from a visual effects standpoint than this one, because this is a huge shot. Rodrigo Tomaso is a visual effects supervisor, lead compositor on the film. 109 visual effects shots in this film besides this one.
Isn't that crazy? Everything from, you already talked about, like some of the stuff that they had to remove, or like add the extra beams in the train station, or cleaning up the way that the public, like the government building looked in the past to make it look a lot nicer. It was constant. Or even like when they're drinking coffee, they had to remove a company logo off the side of the cup. It's everywhere. These guys put so much work into it, and it's Cien Bares Producciones is the name of the production company, or the special effects company that did all of this. And I'm really impressed with the work that they did here.
Yeah. Already mentioned that Juan José Campanella himself did the editing on this film. I'm saying editing, knowing that it's supposed to come off like one shot, right? We know that that's the gimmick. But by use of space and use of compression, and where they obviously are doing all these match edits, it ends up being going from big to small in both time and space, and is staged exceptionally well.
It really is. But like you said, they had to put so much planning into this. It was probably quite a bit of work just figuring out, okay, where can we cut? Where can we pull out of this helicopter shot and come into this crane shot and make it work. It's really...
That's what I was trying to figure out, because the reel does not do a great job of explaining, because I don't think it actually explains anything. There's no voice. And so it's unclear to me where they matched Esposito. Did they ever match? They didn't CG him, right? I mean, there was never a CG Esposito that we cut into. It cuts into the crowd. It cuts in from the helicopter to the crowd, and then the crane is what takes us to him.
Yeah.
But then what takes us to whatever, a steady cam as we get into the back? Like, I was blown away.
Well, I think what happens is the helicopter comes into the stadium and flies over the arena, and and then it kind of tilts straight down and then just flies basically over and out of the crowd. And then somewhere in that over, where the camera is kind of flying directly, like bird's eye view, looking down at everybody, and then it tilts up. In that move, that is the second camera shot. And
so where's the third?
Okay, so the camera 2 goes to the point where it ends where Pablo comes over and starts talking to Esposito, and he goes, there he is. And there's a little bit of a whip pan down the crowd to find who he thinks is Gomez. And that's where, somewhere in there is where that third whip is, or third cut is.
Yeah.
And we come in on the two of them as they approach that person. And then I think that shot ends when they find the guy. It's not him. And fourth shot starts as we pan away from him back to Esposito as he turns to walk away.
I have no concept, literally no concept of how a sequence like this is built when it is so deeply rooted in visual effects. Like, is this effectively a rough cut scenario where he's sitting there cutting together these things with no effects, like before? Like, at what point does it get handed off? Does each cut get handed off to the effects team? Do you know what I'm saying?
It's one of those things where I think that they're constantly working on everything at the same time, together. Like, he probably does a cut and he knows, okay, we're going to have to take this frame and we're going to have to adjust it, tilt it and adjust it to here so that everything lines up and everything fits. We'll rotoscope these people out and put these people in. And there's all that work, but I think that it's constant work, just trying to keep tabs on all the different elements all through it.
It's stunning. Have you ever worked on a project with this level of visual effects? Because
this is a lot of complexity.
I certainly, man.
Yeah, I've worked on replacement of stuff, but not to this level. Like I would have a hard time wrapping my head around what we needed to do. And I mean, it's hard enough for me to go, okay, here's 200 people. Now fill the stadium to make it look like 500,000. That to me is hard enough. Or watching the VFX reel where they're doing the little thing where they're showing you how they pretty much made all the extra soccer players on the field.
Yeah.
And you see just like the library of faces going by and the library of skin tones and the library of clothes. It's like, geez, just to randomly make all these people. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Unrelated to the visual effects, what did you think of the music?
It's great. This is, it has I'm trying to remember the music in this scene specifically, but I felt like there was so much tension and everything kind of moving forward that that's kind of my recollection of it.
Yeah, it sounded like what I think the music with the sound actually works really well together. I mean, it feels very much like you're coming into a stadium. It's like, Friday Night Lights kind of music, and then it moves into a much more sort of energetic thriller thing as soon as we kick into the chase. And I think that transition is really sharp.
It's got the chanting in the music when it's kicking off.
Yeah. I don't remember if there was a vuvuzela, but I feel like there should have been if there wasn't.
A what?
A vuvuzela.
I don't know what a vuvuzela is.
Oh, yes, you do. You think you don't, but you do. It's the horn. It's the horn that they at all the biggest. Wow.
Oh, the wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I know what it is. Yeah, that's more of a basketball thing, right?
What? No, sir. No, that's a football thing.
Well, we definitely have the goal. As the goal is scored. And I like that they call it the goal, the hell shot. You know, it's like everything kind of explodes.
Yeah,
so.
right. The let's see. So I didn't even say his name. Federico Jusid is the composer. Jusid is the composer behind this film. Solid work there. Who else do you want to talk about that is not in this scene?
Well, we already talked about the writers, Eduardo Sacheri and Juan Jose Campanella. They did end up collaborating on that animated film Underdogs, which looked pretty underwhelming. But I don't know. I didn't see it. I'm curious. I know my kids wanted to see it, but I was like, maybe we'll skip that one. But, and then Campanella, I mean, I think that he's a really interesting director, and just watching these two films of his, I really feel like this is a guy I want to, continue to look for, because I feel like he, has a really strong handle on cinema and how to tell stories.
In terms of other folks in the film, we haven't talked all that much about Soledad Villamil.
Or Villamil.
I cannot wait
Villamil.
to get back into some films where I can pronounce the people who are in it. Plays Irene Menendez Hastings, our love interest, and his boss.
I had never seen her before, and just instantly fell in love with her. I think that she carries an incredible presence on screen and really does a great job of balancing like the early parts of the film where she's, you know, that new person in the office who's kind of having to stand her ground and to kind of make herself a presence. And then later when she's now kind of shown that, hey, I am, you know, strong enough to be the DA, and here I am, and I liked that about her, and I think that she played the part really well, especially with the eyes. She has incredible eyes that work really well in a film where it's all about the subtext of the eyes.
Yep, she was fantastic. Pablo Rago as Ricardo Morales.
I think he was just as powerful as Soledad. I mean, the way that he played it when they first tell him that his wife is dead, and you just have him sitting there, and you can see the kind of the tears welling up in his eyes, but he's just kind of talking to them. It was really painful, really nice, really well done, and he really, for me, worked well as the man who is kind of represented, you know, his passion was this woman in his life, and it was taken away. And his life was now all about kind of resolving that. And I thought he carried that really well all the way through to the end in his last scene when he's just like, you said life, and you just see him standing there next to you know, he is in his own prison. And I thought that was done so nicely.
I totally agree with you. I think Morales is a complicated character. I think it would have been better had I believed the age makeup at the end. That is a sore point for me around him. He looked like he was just like, I could put a pillow in my shirt and, you know, paint my face a little bit. He just didn't. I didn't buy his age at all.
I was really frustrated with his makeup and the makeup of Gomez. Both of them, I don't think, took to the age makeup nearly as well as Darín did. Darín, I 100% bought him.
Well, I was curious. I wonder which... I got the feeling that Darín actually looked more like that at his age. Like they had to do less age makeup to age him because he was already closer to that age. And that, in fact, the real makeup for him was young, like making him look so much younger.
Yeah, maybe.
And so the inversion, I think, worked much better in his favor than it did those other guys who were very clearly younger actors and had to be aged significantly. And it did not aged and rendered ill. Like in the case of Gomez, I mean, he had to look like he's been sitting in a cell for 25 years and treated poorly. So it just didn't take.
Yeah, that was a rough part for me, but in context, it's easy to forgive because I felt the scene worked so well.
Yep, absolutely. Some other names that you want to point out here?
For me, the other name that really stands out, we've already talked about a little bit, is Javier Godino as Gomez. I thought he worked just really well. because when he is first being interrogated, he seems so innocent, and he plays that so well. And I love that it's to the point where Darín is really confused, like, maybe I have the wrong guy. And it's not until that incredibly creepy moment when Soledad is, he talking to Darín, and she catches him kind of looking at her exposed bra because of the rip in her shirt. And, you realize, oh, there is a real creep in here. I thought Gomez really nailed that element of this character. Or, I mean, Javier nailed that element of Gomez.
Yeah, I think so too. That sequence in particular was shocking when he loses his cool and, first of all, he ends up revealing himself in the film, which I thought was surprising and not at all surprising. Like, it absolutely fit the character, right? It fit. That was a thing that this creep would do. And then he hauls off and hits her and is shrieking at her these obscenities. Thus locking his conviction. Like, there is no point after that sequence that you feel like, maybe he should be released as a member of the, illicit state police. Maybe he should get off for special treatment. Like, he needs to be put away. And so the film just really sells it. And that makes it's just that much more heartbreaking when you see him, free on the street, not 10 minutes later in the film, in film time.
Oh, yeah. Really frustrating.
We get a little bit of Liliana Colotto, the character played by Carla Quevedo. She's the young wife who is raped and murdered early in the film, and we see her mostly through flashes of memory.
Yeah, and I don't have much to say about her other than they treat her well in the film to make you feel like she is this highlight in Morales' life.
Yeah.
So, to that end, I thought she did great.
How'd this do in award season?
Really well. This was a very, very popular film.
Thank goodness.
I know. It got 52 wins and 40 other nominations. We didn't... in the last film we talked about, I didn't see that there was an Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences of Argentina, but apparently between 2001 and 2009 they must have established it. But it had 14 wins and 4 other nominations there. It won for Best Actor, Darín; Best Actress, Soledad; Best Art Direction, Cinematography, Director, Editing, Makeup. There you go. Music, New Actor, Jose Luis Joya, who played Inspector Baez; Best Adapted Screenplay; Best Sound; Best Supporting Actor for Guillermo Francella; and Best Film. The ones that it lost for were Costume Design, which lost to Felicitas; New Actor, Javier Godino, who lost to Gomez; and Best Supporting Actor, Pablo Rago; and Supporting Actor, Mario Alarcón, who both also lost to their somebody they were working with. At the Argentinian Film Critics Association Awards, the Silver Condors, it did have 11 wins, 3 other nominations. And at the Oscars here, it had Best Foreign Language Film. It took away that award. So they did a great job. And looking at just what our focus of this series, Ricardo Darín, he had 6 wins and 3 other nominations for this film. So kudos to him. He did a great job.
Now, in 2015, as we've already mentioned, we had a remake. And you say of this remake, a pale shadow of the original, so far so good. And then you say, everyone involved should be ashamed and embarrassed.
I did say that.
That may be the best Amazon review we've ever read. What? So that was the big remake, yeah?
That was the big remake. It was a real disappointment to me. Yeah, I don't think that they had that anyone else has talked about adapting it. No sequels or anything like that. But yeah, Billy Ray, who had, he directed Shattered Glass, Breach, and he'd written things like way back to the early 90s, like Color of Night and Volcano, everyone's favorite. all the way up through Captain Phillips and The Hunger Games. So he has a wide variety in his credits. He wrote and directed this. And I just could not help feeling like he missed the entire point of the film. And it was just such a frustrating experience to watch this because everything just did not play the way that it really needed to kind of to hit the points. And he changed things. And I already mentioned they had to change this whole, they had to come up with an element for this person to be released in the past, and in that it's the team decides, hey, this bad guy would be a great counterterrorism investigator, and so they kind of release him and everything, and it doesn't work. And then the other issue is I'm just going to spoil it because it's such a crappy movie. The whole thing is, you get this, basically the stadium scene takes place in the present day because he got away in the past. And also in the past, it's not just some random person whose wife they are trying to avenge. It happens to be their coworker whose daughter was killed. And so it adds this whole other weird element. It's like, why was that in here? Why did we need to go that route? It's just a strange shift. But you get this whole thing where the guy gets away, and then in the present day, now they do the whole thing. It's at a baseball game. It's multiple cuts, so they take all the fun away of the single shot through it. They catch the guy and everything, and then it turns out that it's not the guy. And the whole big reveal is that Julie Roberts' character, she had actually caught the guy in the past, and she's had him in her little barn jail this whole time. And this other guy is just some other guy. It's like, well, what? Why were we? What? Why? And they look the same. What? Oh, it was nonsense. Just nonsense.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry for you, man.
Frustrating.
It's like it puts you in a tough place. Yeah.
It made me mad. I think that if I had seen it without having seen The Secret in Their Eyes first, I think I probably would know, well, it was interesting. I don't think it emotionally evolved the way I would have liked it to. It wasn't bad, but it's probably pretty forgettable. That's probably where I would have been with it.
Yeah.
But having seen the original Argentine film first, and then seeing what they did with it, I'm like, man, these guys just screwed everything up putting this together. And I don't know if the actors knew that, reading the script and going along with it, or if they kind of were like, I'd like to think, because I like all these actors, I like to think as they were working, they're like, I don't think this is going the way that I was thinking it would.
That's the stunning thing. I mean, that cast it's amazing.
I know. We've got Chiwetel Ejiofor, Nicole Kidman, Julie Roberts, Dean Norris. It's a great group of people, and unfortunately, the film it was a painful experience to watch.
Well, okay, so there you go. Don't worry about that one. Definitely see the 2009 film. How did this do at the box office?
It's funny. The numbers for this film are in a bit of a disagreement on the various sites that I look at. So I guess I have to go with the numbers that seem to correspond mostly on most of the sites. It looks like Campanella got a bit more than he got to make Son of the Bride. For this film, he had a budget of $3.5 million, or $3.9 in today's dollars. The movie premiered in Argentina on August 13th, 2009, and like Darín's previous films we've discussed, this film was a critical and commercial success, becoming the second highest grossing film in Argentina's history, only topped by a 1975 film directed by Leonardo Favio called Nazareno Cruz and the Wolf. I had never heard of that film, never seen it. I have no idea what it's about, but apparently everybody in Argentina loves it. This movie had a limited release in the US on April 16th, 2010, opposite the Death at a Funeral remake and Kick-Ass. It went on to make $6.4 million here and $27.9 million everywhere else, raking in a grand total of $38.5 million in today's dollars, giving the movie an adjusted profit per finished minute of $268,000.
It's fantastic results for a fantastic movie. Once again, this movie it just continues our exploration of Ricardo Darín, and it just one right after another. They just keep getting better.
Yeah, they really do. It's a fantastic run for this series. I don't know when we've had a film series that I feel like it's just had so many exciting films. It's great.
Yeah. This has been really fantastic. I'm excited to see how you end up ranking it, Andy.
Ooh, let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and line it up. You can just tap in your show notes there. You can tap the Flickchart, the word Flickchart. It'll take you right to this movie on Flickchart, and you can add it to your list. Let's see where it lands on ours.
First up, we have El Secreto de Sus Ojos, or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I'm going to go Secret
for me. Secret in Their Eyes, or Seven Samurai.
Secret
for me. The Secret in Their Eyes, or Aliens. Aliens.
Yeah, I mean it's Aliens, but it's hard.
Yeah, it really is. The Secret in Their Eyes, or The World's End. I will say The Secret in Their Eyes.
Secret in Their Eyes. Ugh.
I know. The Secret in Their Eyes, or French Connection. I will say The Secret in Their Eyes.
Oh, Andy, you know how hard this is for me, but I'm going to say The Secret in Their Eyes.
Wow, look at that.
There was no picking of toes in Poughkeepsie, and that would have made this movie better.
The Secret in Their Eyes, or Apocalypse Now.
Secret in Their Eyes.
I have to go with Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go to the mat.
I'm okay losing if I have to lose, because I really love this film.
Yeah, you know who says things like that? Losers do. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Rock.
Paper. Oh, sorry.
Turns out winners do too. I'm glad we got to figure that out.
That's right. The Secret in Their Eyes, or Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
No.
I will say The Secret in Their Eyes.
Oh, Andy. Man. I'm like you. I'm going to pick Star Trek, but if I lose, it will have been okay. All right, here we go.
Well, we know who says that, so here we go. All right.
1, 2, 3. Scissors. Paper.
Rock. Oh,
you're right, Andy. Winners do say that.
That's right.
Confirmed.
The Secret in Their Eyes, or The Fisher King.
Secret in Their Eyes.
I actually will say Secret in Their Eyes. They're really close, but yeah, I'm going Secret in Their Eyes. Well, look at that. It is a Secret in Their Eyes is coming in at number 48 on our Flick Chart. 48 out of 325.
That's really cool.
Pretty solid. It's 85%.
It's amazing. Where did this end up on your personal Flick Chart?
My personal Flick Chart, it came in at 236 out of 3868. So that's at about 94%. It's way high.
And we are in lockstep here, Andy. I am at it's 60 out of 1,002 movies for me. That's also 94%.
Look at that.
Way high. And I am not ashamed to say this is a 5-star and a heart for me. Andy, I loved this film.
5-star and a heart over on Letterboxd from me too. This to me is really just a perfect film. It blended so many story elements in such a way that I was surprised. I thought about it for days afterward in a way where I wanted to just put it on again right away because it just got me so excited.
Really jazzed. It's just fantastic. So we're wrapping it up here. We have one more movie left in our current sort of Ricardo Darín exploration. Where do we go from here?
We're going to be wrapping it up with Wild Tales, otherwise known as Relatos Salvajes, directed by Damián Cifrón in 2014. This is an anthology film, so we have much less of Darín in this film than any of our others, because he's only in one of the 6 tales in this one. But
so wait a minute, that means we should only have to watch 1/6 of the movie, and our conversation next week should be about 20 minutes long.
Exactly.
All of the above is true.
Nice try. Nice try, you.
Loving this conversation. Love where this is going. Don't forget, everybody, make sure you subscribe to our Patreon. If you want to throw us a buck, you can get access to our Saturday show, the Saturday Matinee. Andy, why do you love the Saturday Matinee?
We get to talk about all the things that we no longer talk about on this show, and which is fun.
It's the fun stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's really exciting is we do these lists where we basically come up with a list of 3 films that are somehow thematically connected to the film that we are talking about that week. And this particular week, because this film has this fantastic cold case story element, we are going to be talking about 3 of our favorite films that deal with cold cases. So we each get to pick them and share them, and it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. And if you subscribe on Patreon, you get all of our past Saturday matinees where you can hear such hits as Best Movies with Weddings in Them. Best movies about stamps, ideally part of the plot, but at least should be pointed out. And best stories of missing people stranded somewhere, lost colonies included. Yes, these are real hits. These lists. What's
You're really selling it there, Pete. You're really selling it.
No, I really am, because what's remarkable about this is that no matter how stupid the list may sound, the lists of movies that come out of these conversations are really good. I have got my list of movies that I just haven't seen that you guys have brought together. It's just fantastic. So I look forward to this every week, even when it's movies with weddings in them. One of these days, it's going to be movies, best movies starring actors whose last name involves postage. And it'll just
waiting
be
to get that
Terrence Stamp and Marky Post. That's it. Just all Terrence Stamp and Marky Post movies. Shut up, Andy. This has been great. You know the drill, Andy. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always doeth.
Oh, this film, Amazon really does giveth, with a number of 1-star reviews to help us support our quest for the best Amazon review across the entire catalog. We are still searching. I feel like there's sort of a set of a trio, if you will, of reviews that I would like to share. They're very short. If you don't mind. Now, this is a movie from Argentina, and it is a movie that is fairly clearly, we'll see how clear it is. Beware, Andy, movie in Spanish. This movie is in Spanish. Why would they write the description in English and fail to mention that the movie is in Spanish? Don't waste your money unless you understand a movie in Spanish. And then how about Spanish movie with subtitles? I couldn't watch this movie. It was in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. Nowhere in the reviews did they say the movie was in Spanish. And then how about English subtitled? English subtitled? No indication that it was. If I had known, I would not have rented it. I did not watch the movie, and I would like to have a refund. These are all people, Andy, clearly, who don't like to read their movies.
Clearly.
Clearly. So disappointed for humanity.
Well, I have somebody else who also had an issue with it. It did not in any way relate to the Spanish nature of the film.
Spanish nature of the film?
I think that's how they should call it. This film is of the Spanish nature.
It's slightly Spanish-natured. It's fiery.
This review, Dutch Princess, said did not like this version. Dutch Princess, I should say, screamed the review because it's in all caps. I was looking for the American version with Julia Roberts. Did not like this version. Too graphic.
Now tone it down, Dutch Princess. Easy. I have to ask you, Andy, on reflection, what is your take on that critical review of violence in the film? Which one do you find more grotesque and violent?
We do see the rape and the bloody body here in the American film. You don't quite see that. You just see that there's a body in a dumpster, and Julie Roberts realizes it's her daughter, and she climbs in and clutches her and everything. And that's in my recollection. That's pretty much the extent of it.
Okay.
So it is much more toned down.
All right. Well, maybe Dutch Princess has a thing on you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amazon.
It's hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You're telling me producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
I was so excited for our big Star Trek film franchise series this season. All those movies adapted from Gene Roddenberry's original 1960s TV show.
As a huge fan, I know that you geeked out over analyzing the adaptations.
Absolutely. From the motion picture to the Kelvin timeline films, seeing the Enterprise crews on the big screen was a dream come true.
Our list of source material isn't just all books and plays. We have the original series in our list of source material. You can rent the episodes to watch and enjoy and support the show in the process.
For our Millennium Trilogy series, we covered films adapted from the original books that launched Lisbeth Salander, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest.
As much as I love Fincher's version, the original Swedish versions are the way to go. We also did our Die Hard series in Season 7.
I can't believe Die Hard and Die Hard 2 were adaptations. Two of the greatest action movies ever.
Well, one of them at least. The other is awfully fun, though. We revisited the classic Mary Poppins for our 1960s movie musical series. A spoonful of sugar always helps the medicine go down.
Old Boy was intense for our Park Chan-wook Vengeance trilogy. And East of Eden and Giant were highlights of our James Dean series.
And a fun time travel mind bender with Predestination to cap things off.
Find all the books behind these adaptations and more at thenextreel.com/originals.
Dive into the source material for your favorite movies. Check it out today, thenextreel.com/originals.